What's going on, everybody? It's Q from RetroQ Gaming, and I want to talk about some great games today that are in a bit of a poor situation. Now, you may be wondering why I'm not using the footage for them. There's a specific reason which we'll get to later on in the video. But I want to talk about Grandia 1 and Grandia 2. These are both games that are near and dear to my heart. They're fantastic games, they're excellent RPGs, and I'm sure many people out there, just like myself, were looking forward to the Grandia 1 and Grandia 2 remasters. Before we go any further though, I do want to say that yes, Grandia 2 HD Anniversary has existed on PC for several years at this point, as well as the original Grandia 2 launching on PC back in the day. But last August of 2018, Grandia 1 and Grandia 2 HD Collection were announced for PC and Switch. Of course, many people didn't even know the PC version existed because Switch clickbait sells. It was scheduled to be due out in winter of 2018 by the end of that year, but unfortunately it suffered numerous delays, and here we are with it finally releasing in some form in the latter half of 2019. It just launched about 2 weeks ago on Switch, with the PC version coming later this month in September. But that's where the problems start to rise. If you haven't been paying attention, the Switch versions of these games are pretty much a disaster, and the remaster of this game has been handled very, very poorly. Now, it's been done by Gung Ho Entertainment, and originally when the details of what was going to be done in the remaster and everything that was going to be afforded to it, it sounded promising, it sounded good, it sounded like they were going to do it right. However, what we actually got in the end is not the case. One of the biggest points of contention is that way back in the day, this, believe it or not, Grandia 1 is not a PS1 game. Sure, there was a port of it on the PS1, but it's actually a Sega Saturn game. And because of the artwork and the sprites and how everything was done and how everything was rendered and what it was originally designed for and the power of those consoles, the Saturn version is considered the vastly superior version. The PS1 version was cut down in so many ways that it's basically an inferior experience. Now, when this game was announced, or should I say when its remaster was announced, they said that they were mainly going to focus on the Sega Saturn version of this game, as it was the proper definitive release essentially. They did officially say that there would be a little bit of PS1 stuff in there, but just before launch, several weeks if not a month or two ago, when they showed off some more extra additional footage, it became instantly apparent that this and everything they were doing with it was completely based off the PS1 version. Of course, they tried to come out and damage control it a little bit, to which they said, "Oh no, we hear your fears and now we're going to start working with the Sega Saturn version. So you originally promised that the vast majority of the game would be based on the Sega Saturn version. Then none of that was the case. You got called out on it right before release. Then you promised to use a bit of the Sega Saturn version." By the way, spoiler alert for those of you out there, here we are a couple of weeks later after all of this, and no, none of the Sega Saturn stuff, none of the Sega Saturn version stuff anyway, has been basically used as the baseline for any of this. But it doesn't stop there. It gets worse and it gets far more egregious. There are so many different audio problems. Audio cuts off before where it should. Think of a sound effect or a battle cry or whatever it is, or some dialogue, and it just cuts off mid-sentence. It cuts off before the end. That's a pretty significant audio problem. There's also people out there who take issue with the new graphical style. Now, when you look at the game and you look at the textures of the walls, of the floors, of just the areas and the 3D aspect in general, you can clearly tell it's based on the PS1 version. Again, not a good thing, it does look inferior, but you can tell that that's what they used as their baseline to go forward. And if you've ever seen Grandia 1 sprites, both character sprites as well as battle sprites, you can tell that they used to look great. They worked really well with their art style and their pixel perfect, almost blocky two-dimensional goodness. However, Gung Ho have kind of put a horrible looking filter on this. Now, I shouldn't say put a horrible looking filter because I'll get to that in a moment. But if you think of the mobile versions, or, well, what is essentially some of the more modern ports of the likes of Final Fantasy V and VI, where they use those horrible new redrawn assets, it basically looks like that. Everything, all the characters are perfectly smooth. It loses some of the original charm. And a big issue with this is that it's not actually just a filter. People have dug into the game files and it seems they have completely removed the original sprites and put all these one in place. So it's not like when it comes to PC, we can just disable the filter with a mod and do it that way. However, of course, I do realize that we can just mod in the original sprites, but you see my point of it. The whole situation involved with what they've done in the remaster side of it. Now, personally, I've seen some screenshots and I've seen a little bit of video and all on this for Grandia 1 HD. I don't know how I feel about it yet because there's just so little of it out there that I've exposed myself to. I want to sit down and play it and see how it affects me in general. Do I miss that particular art style? Do I miss that particular look? Or is it adequate and passable enough as a remaster? But sprite aesthetic changes aside, the big issue is all those problems that we listed before. Everything being based off the vastly inferior PS1 version, despite multiple, what will we call them, assuasions, I think is the proper word, of when they tried to do that and tell us that, yeah, Sega Saturn, your best version, blah, 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 that's what you get. And then clearly that's not the case. It just makes me wonder, is remastering a game so damn hard? I don't believe so. I think there's just so much incompetence involved. And the reason why I say that is you look at certain studios out there who do remasters, mainly Blue Point Games, and they can show you that a remaster, when done correctly, is exceptional. But look at all these other shoddy slapdash remasters. You'll notice that many of them are not usually done in-house and done by these smaller indie companies. I realize you could say Blue Point Games is arguably a smaller indie company. But when you look at more of the port and remaster companies out there, many of them are, well, port and remaster companies for a reason. They have a very, very low quality history. But the one promising thing to take away from this whole situation is that Gung Ho Interactive have seen the backlash, have seen the outcry, have seen everyone not happy and upset about this. They've said that they're going to be working on new patches to fix stuff and change some stuff as well, but at this point we have to wait and see. We don't know just how much they're going to change. We don't know what's going to be fixed. Obviously it should have been fixed before launch. But I'm curious to see how this goes in one way. I know when Grandia 1 HD comes out on PC later this month, I will not be buying it. I'm going to wait and see till if all the fixes, all the patches, whatever, if they're retroactive, if they're included with that version. If they're not, and it's a pretty poor port, I won't be buying it until it's fixed. And when they do patch it and fix it and whatnot, or the modding community saves the day yet again, because for some reason that's what we have to do, and that's when I will throw my money down and buy the game. It also makes me kind of skeptical about Grandia 2, which, like I said, has existed for several years in a HD form on PC now, but that will soon be getting updated and patched for some minor changes that are included in this new HD version. So basically it's probably going to break the game and make it worse, but we'll see. Anyway, let me know in the comments section below, what's your whole thoughts and opinions on this whole Grandia remaster debacle mess? Do you think everyone's overreacting because they didn't do what they said they were going to do, or that they broke the game, or that it's, well, just overall a shoddy port? Or what's the deal? Do you love the series? Are you waiting to see? Are you burned by it already? Let me know all of that good stuff in the comments section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know what it did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or a live stream or whatever is a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.